I never thought my own daughter would try to empty my bank account in front of a room full of strangers. But there I was, 68 years old, sitting at a polished wooden table in the middle of First National Bank, while Jessica, 37 and smiling like we were posing for Christmas photos, slid the withdrawal slip toward me and whispered, "Just sign, Mom. It's only paperwork." Her husband, Ryan, stood behind my chair, one hand resting lightly on my shoulder, except it wasn't light at all. His fingers dug in the way they do when someone wants you to remember who's in charge without making a scene. The teller was counting cash 10 feet away, the air smelled like paper and lemon cleaner, and the clock above the door read 2:47 on a perfectly ordinary Thursday. My heart was slamming so hard I could barely hear Jessica when she added, sweet as syrup, "We're doing this for your own good. Old people get confused about money." If this story hits close to home, if you've ever felt that twist in your gut when family turns on you, please subscribe to the channel. There are more stories like mine, and I don't want you to feel alone when the next one comes. I need you to understand how I ended up here, shaking, with a pen in my hand and everything I had left in the world hanging on one signature. My name is Beatrice Walsh. Most people call me B. 3 years ago, my husband Raymond died of a heart attack in our driveway while carrying in groceries. One minute he was complaining about the price of oranges, the next he was gone. The life insurance paid off the house and left me $58,000 in a savings account. That was supposed to be my safety net, my golden years, my reward for 44 years of marriage and 50 years of saying yes to everyone who needed something. Jessica is my only child. When she was born, I promised her the world, and for 37 years, I tried to deliver it, one check at a time. She wanted horseback riding lessons at 9, $1,200 a year. I picked up night shifts at the grocery bakery, coming home with flour in my hair and aching feet so she could have ribbons and trophies. At 16, she had to have the designer prom dress every girl at school was wearing. $800, I cashed in the savings bonds my own mother had given me. College? Of course. It had to be the private school 3 states away. $160,000 total after loans. Raymond and I lived on pasta and canned tuna for 4 years so she could graduate debt-free. Then came the wedding. $75,000 for one day because, "Mom, you only get one wedding." I drained the last of Raymond's retirement fund. Jessica walked down the aisle looking like an angel while I sat in the front pew wondering how I was going to pay the electric bill. After the honeymoon, another 12 grand I covered because we can't start married life in debt, Mom. The requests never stopped. Just little things at first. A new mattress, car insurance went up, Ryan got laid off for 3 months, 500 here, 2,000 there. Always with tears and hugs and promises it was the last time. Then they wanted a house, 4 bedrooms in Willow Creek Estates because our baby deserves a good school district. Down payment? $48,000. I took it out of the account that was supposed to pay my property taxes for the next 20 years. Jessica hugged me so hard I thought my ribs would crack. "You are the most generous mom in the world," she said. Ryan shook my hand like we'd closed a business deal. They never paid a dime back. 18 months ago, Ryan started a landscaping business that couldn't fail. Equipment, truck, advertising, $22,000 I invested. Last month, the truck got repossessed. I found out when Jessica called crying that the repo man came while the neighbors watched. And now, on this Thursday afternoon, they needed one final signature to move the remaining $51,342.16 from my savings account straight into an account that would belong only to them. They'd told me it would be a joint account with all 3 names, but the form proved that was another lie. "It's just to keep it safe, Mom," Jessica had said that morning on the phone. "Some paperwork the financial advisor recommended." I knew it was a lie the second we walked into the bank. I'd seen the form she printed at home. Total liquidation, no joint account, straight transfer to an account that was already in only their names the moment the money landed. Ryan's grip tightened. "Don't embarrass us, Beatrice," he muttered,
smiles still plastered on for the security cameras. Jessica leaned in, perfume choking me. Think of Harper, 8 years old and already asking why Grandma never comes over anymore. You want her to think you don't care? Harper, my granddaughter, the one bright spot in all of this. The little girl who used to run to me with sticky fingers and crayon drawings of houses with giant grandmas standing in the yard. The teller glanced over. Mid-20s, name tag said Jordan. He looked bored until he noticed Ryan's hand on my shoulder and the way that I hadn't moved the pen an inch. I did the only thing I could think of. While Jessica was pretending to fix her lipstick, I grabbed the complimentary notepad by the loan officer's phone and scribbled 4 words. Help, being forced. I folded it small and slid it across the table toward Jordan when he walked past with deposit slips. He opened it behind a folder. I saw his eyes flick up to mine, then to Ryan's hand, then to the security guard by the door. Jordan gave the tiniest nod and disappeared into a side office. Jessica didn't notice. She was too busy whispering, "If you love us, you'll sign." Ryan added, low and cold, "Old ladies who can't manage their money end up in state homes, Beatrice. You don't want that for yourself." I believed him for about 10 seconds. Then I remembered the folder on my kitchen table at home, the one that I'd found 2 nights ago when I couldn't sleep. I'd been looking for Raymond's old watch to take to the jeweler for a new battery. Instead, I found a manila folder tucked behind the water heater in the basement. Jessica must have hidden it the last time she helped clean. Inside were bank statements I'd never seen, life insurance quotes with my forged signature, even a power of attorney form dated last year that I have zero memory of signing. And the kicker? A printout from an offshore account in the Cayman Islands opened 6 months ago in Ryan's name only. Balance? $0.00. Waiting. There was a note in Jessica's handwriting clipped to the top. Once Mom signs the transfer, move everything Friday night. She'll never notice until Monday. Invoice attached. Grand Cayman Trust Company setup fee, $2,800, paid from my checking account on March 14th, 2024. I still have the receipt. That folder was burning a hole in my purse right now, hidden under my wallet and a pack of tissues.
Jordan came back with the branch manager, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a nameplate that read Marlene Carter. She smiled the way people do when they're about to ruin someone's day, but in the best possible way. "Mrs. Walsh, could I speak with you privately for a moment? Standard verification for large transfers." Ryan's fingers dug deeper. "That's not necessary. We're all family here." Marlene's smile didn't waver. "Bank policy, sir. No exceptions." Jessica tried. "Mom, just sign and we can go. Harper has dance at 4. I stood up. My legs felt like water, but I stood. Ryan had to let go or make a scene in front of 3 cameras and 2 armed guards. In Marlene's office, I laid it all out. The folder, the forged documents, the bruises on my arm shaped like Ryan's fingers, the offshore account, the years of bleeding me dry. I cried, but not from weakness, from pure blazing fury that I'd let it go on this long. Marlene listened, took notes, and when I finished, she picked up the phone. "Security, please hold Mr. and Mrs. Morrison in the lobby," quietly. Then she looked me in the eye. "Beatrice, do you want to press charges?" I thought of Harper. I thought of the little girl who deserved better than parents who would steal from her grandmother. I thought of Raymond turning in his grave. "Not yet," I said, "but I want every restriction you can put on my accounts. And I want them as sorted out." Marlene nodded. "Done. And I'm calling Adult Protective Services. This is elder financial abuse. It has a name, and it's a crime." When we walked back to the lobby, Ryan's face was red. Jessica looked like she'd been slapped. "What is this?" Ryan demanded. Marlene stepped forward. "The transaction has been canceled. Mrs. Walsh has decided to keep her money in her own name. You are no longer authorized signers on any of her accounts. Please leave the premises."
Jessica's mask slipped. "Mom, you can't do this. We're your family." I looked at my daughter, the child I'd carried, nursed, sacrificed for, and felt something inside me finally snap into place. Family doesn't steal, Jessica. Family doesn't threaten. Family doesn't forge signatures and hide money offshore. You stopped being my family the day you decided I was nothing but a bank account with a pulse. Ryan took a step toward me. The guards moved faster, one on each arm. Jessica was crying now. Real tears or fake, I no longer cared. "You'll be sorry," she hissed. "When you're old and sick and alone, don't come crawling to us." I smiled for the first time all day. I won't need to. I still have $51,000, my house, and a spine I apparently misplaced 37 years ago. I'll manage. They were escorted out. Jessica kept turning back, shouting that I was making a mistake, that Harper would hate me, that blood is thicker than water. Ryan didn't say another word. He didn't need to. The look he gave me promised this wasn't over, but it was. I sat down hard in the lobby chair after they left. Marlene brought me water and a blanket, even though it was 80 degrees outside. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. That night, I changed every password, every PIN, every account. I removed Jessica and Ryan as beneficiaries on everything. I hired a lawyer the next morning, paid up front with money that was still mine. I filed for a restraining order. I reported them to Adult Protective Services and gave them copies of every document in that folder. The fallout was ugly. Jessica left voicemails that went from pleading to screaming to ice-cold silence. She showed up at my house with Harper in the car, holding her up like a human shield. "Tell Grandma you miss her," she coached through the window. Harper waved, confused. I waved back from behind locked doors and closed curtains. My phone blew up with texts from cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. "Jessica says you've lost your mind. Jessica says you're imagining things. Jessica says you need help." I stopped answering. 3 weeks later, the police knocked on my door. Ryan had tried to use an old check from my checkbook, number 1127, written for $9,800 to cash, with my forged signature. The bank flagged it. They arrested him for uttering and publishing. Jessica claims she knew nothing about it. The detective who took my statement didn't look like he believed her. I didn't press charges that time, but I did get the restraining order extended to both of them. The hardest part wasn't the money I still had. It was the silence where Harper's laughter used to be. For months, I walked around like a ghost in my own house. I'd see her little pink coat in the closet and lose an entire afternoon crying. I'd bake chocolate chip cookies and end up throwing them out because there was no one to eat them warm from the oven. Then one Tuesday, I saw a flyer at the senior center, Support Group for Survivors of Family Financial Abuse. I almost threw it away. I wasn't a survivor. I was just a mother who finally said no. I went anyway.
There were 12 of us in folding chairs in the church basement. A man whose son stole his identity to buy sports cars. A woman whose daughter drained her accounts to feed a pill habit. And me. We cried. We laughed at the absurdity of it all. We traded lawyers' names and freezer meal recipes and stories that made my own look tame. One woman, Grace, 75 and sharp as a tack, took me for coffee after the third meeting. They train us our whole lives to believe a mother's love has no limits, she said. Then they weaponize it. Saying no isn't betrayal, Beatrice. It's oxygen. Oxygen. I wrote it on a sticky note and put it on my bathroom mirror. Slowly, life grew back around the edges. I took the watercolors class I'd always wanted. Turns out I'm not half bad at sunsets. I started volunteering at the library's children's reading hour. Little kids who climb into your lap and smell like crayons, no strings attached. I flew to Ireland by myself for 2 weeks, walked the cliffs of Moher with the wind ripping tears from my eyes, and no one to tell me I was spending money foolishly. And I wrote letters to Harper. one every month. I mailed them to the library with "Hold for Harper Walsh" on the envelope. The children's librarian, a kind woman named Dana, promised to keep them safe until Harper was old enough to come get them herself. Almost 3 years passed. I sold the bait house, too many echoes, and bought a little cottage with roses out front and a sunroom that gets perfect morning light for painting. I'm 70 now, healthier than I've been in decades because I'm not carrying everyone else's weight anymore. This morning, the doorbell rang while I was making coffee. I opened it to find a girl on my porch. Tall, awkward in that 10-year-old way, backpack slipping off one shoulder. "Grandma B?" she asked, voice cracking on the edges. Harper. She'd ridden her bike 6 miles, alone, with a public library card in her pocket and almost 3 years of my letters in her backpack. "I read them all. Every single one," she said. I made hot chocolate with extra marshmallows. We sat on the porch swing, and she told me about school, about the new kitten her parents wouldn't let her keep, about how she'd saved her allowance for 3 months to buy a bus pass so she could come see me without asking them. When the sun started to set, she looked at me with those serious green eyes. "I don't want anything from you, Grandma. I just missed you." I believed her. We're taking it slow. Once a month, she comes over. We bake cookies, paint terrible watercolors, talk about books and boys and whatever else 10-year-olds worry about. No money changes hands. No guilt trips. Just love. Pure, uncomplicated, the way it was supposed to be from the beginning. Jessica found out, of course. There was screaming over the phone, threats to take me to court for alienating Harper. My lawyer sent a polite letter reminding her of the active restraining order and the pending forgery case. The call stopped. Sometimes, late at night, I still hear Ryan's voice in my head. Old ladies who can't manage their money end up in state homes. I look around my cottage, at the walls covered with Harper's new drawings, at the plane tickets to Portugal pinned to the fridge, at the bank statement that finally has my name and only my name on it, and I smile. I managed just fine. If you've ever had to choose between your peace and someone else's greed, leave a comment below and tell me your story. You're not crazy. You're not selfish. You're surviving. And if this resonated with you, subscribe to the channel. There are more of us out here than you think, and together we're louder than they ever expected. I still have that complimentary notepad from the bank, the one I used to write help. I framed the top sheet, blank now, and hung it in my hallway. A reminder that 4 small words, written in desperation, were the first breaths of my new life. I don't need permission to live anymore. I just live.